Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We are going to get started in about a minute, but we're going to give it a little bit more time for people to join. So just hang tight and we will officially kick off in just a few minutes. Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin, and I am a campaigner here at Leadnow. Welcome to our second strategy session for electoral reform. I'm going to start by introducing my colleague, Rachel, who will also be running this huddle with me tonight. So I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, folks. My name is Rachel Tatro. I am the national organizer here at Leadnow, and I work with volunteers in communities across the country on the ground, and I'm based here in Vancouver tonight.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So we are going to kick it off. I'm here in Toronto. As you can see behind me, it is dark and rainy. Rachel is based in Vancouver, and I just want to welcome everybody who's tuning in across the country. We have more people joining by the minute, and we're expecting a few hundred people to be on this call tonight with us. That's really exciting, and we're really, really excited to tell you more about our strategy. So I'm going to let Rachel actually walk us through the agenda now.
Great. Yeah, as Kate said, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to loop folks into our plan to get electoral reform back on the table and what you can do in your communities to help us make this plan happen. As you'll see in our presentation, we're definitely not done fighting for electoral reform. And so just a couple notes about this evening, just some housekeeping. There is a sign-up box on the side of your screen. Don't worry about it for now. We will go through what it is and how to fill it out. And as well, if your screen is currently blurry, there is an option to fix that on your computer. So it's usually the settings that are on your own browser. And the way you can do that is in the actual screen where you're viewing us right now. There's a settings button in the right corner, and you can change the resolution of the image. And so that will help you if right now it is blurry for you, you can actually change and adjust the settings on your computer. Last piece is, and we'll repeat this several times, but if you do have questions as we are speaking, you can tweet to us at Leadnow, and you can also send questions to questions@leadnow.ca. So we'll just go to the slide of the agenda so I can walk you through that. Great, so we're kicking off. We just introduced ourselves, and in a second, Caitlin is going to give us some context about what has been happening with electoral reform in this country in the last year, but specifically in the last few months. Then we will jump into what is the plan. So what are we planning to do to bring electoral reform back, and what can you do specifically? Then we'll have a chance to answer some questions and then talk about next steps. And the presentation will take about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a chance to get into some questions, and we'll be done by the latest by 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Likely we'll be done a little bit before that. So here's the information for the questions. Any questions that come up, please send them to questions@leadnow.ca, or you can tweet us at Leadnow. And we will have a question period at the end, and we will be answering as many questions as we can. We'll likely be seeing what type of themes are coming up for folks. And then any questions we don't get to tonight, we'll be able to respond to by email. And so I'd just like to acknowledge which traditional territory we're on tonight. At Leadnow, we always like to do this before events. We are all across the country tonight. So I'm going to acknowledge the territory that I'm currently on. In Vancouver here, we are on the unceded Coast Salish territory of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam people. And if you are currently in any other city or town or place across the country, you might want to take a moment right now just to think about which First Nations territory you're currently living on. And if you're not sure, this is a great thing to maybe realize tonight as well. And this might be an invitation for you to find out which territory you do live on. This is really important for us to understand our country's history of colonialism and the work that we do every day to respect, protect, and support the fulfillment of the rights of Indigenous peoples.
Okay, so I'm going to take back over in this section, and we're going to talk a little bit about the context of what's been happening over the last couple of weeks on electoral reform, what we think happened, why we think it happened, and then what's next, basically. So I'm going to take that section. Rachel is then going to talk about the strategy for what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. But before I get into that, I just actually wanted to start off by telling you a bit of a story, and the story is actually how I got involved with electoral reform issues. So as a lot of you know, I am the electoral reform campaigner here at Leadnow. You probably get a lot of emails from me, so I hear anyway. And you know, I definitely wasn't born caring about this issue. I don't think many of us are. I think the moment for me when I really began to care about electoral reform was in the 2011 election. This is an election that probably a lot of us remember. When it was a really obvious case of vote splitting. So I remember that being the first federal election that I was really, really engaged with. I spent a lot of time going out and telling young people why they should get involved in politics, why they should care, why they should vote, why they should get involved in civic life. And then I remember really distinctly on that evening in May 2011, sitting in my living room watching the results coming in and just thinking, wow, this is really bad, because what we saw happen was a lot of people across the country vote their conscience, and then the outcome that we saw in the House of Commons was not in any way how people actually voted. And I saw my own vote go to waste. I saw a lot of my friends' votes go to waste, and we ended up with a government that had 100% of the power with only 39% of the vote. And that had huge implications on all the issues that I cared about, on the environment, you know, on social justice issues, and on democracy. And I, in that moment, became really committed to doing what I could to fix that going forward. But it's not as easy, as we know, as just sort of talking to a few MPs and trying to convince them. It's been an uphill battle. So a lot of us were involved in 2015 in Vote Together, in the campaign that Leadnow ran to engage in a strategic voting effort to defeat the Conservatives. And part of that strategy was that you know, most of the parties, except for the Conservatives, had made promises to change how we vote. And that was actually really exciting. And that's the first time that I know of where that's actually happened in a federal election. So it was a huge opportunity to actually have a national conversation about electoral reform, and something that I felt like was a huge, huge victory. And I think that is part of the reason why what happened this past February is so hard. A lot of us who are on this call tonight really took that process seriously and engaged with this government and with our MPs on this issue in a really fulsome way. And we were ready to figure out what it was going to take to make electoral reform happen. And yeah, it felt, I don't know what it felt like for you, but I remember I was sitting in the office here, and it was just sort of another work day. We were preparing for another phase of the campaign where we were going to start going out and meeting one-on-one with MPs. And I remember sitting in the office and then getting an email that Minister Gould was going to be making an announcement. And I just knew what it was going to be. And sure enough, you know, they went out and they announced that they were dropping the electoral reform promise. And yeah, it felt like a punch in the gut. It was a lot of work that we all put into this campaign over the last year. Yeah, and it's really hard in those moments, I think, not to be left feeling cynical and frustrated and disappointed, and just sort of like you want to give up or check out or throw up your hands and say this isn't worth it. And to be honest, I wasn't totally sure after that happened if people were going to stay mad. So people were mad, you were all mad, I was mad. Everyone at Leadnow was mad for the first little while after it happened, but I didn't know if people were going to stay mad because, you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now. We're all pretty busy, and yeah, I kind of didn't know what was going to happen to this campaign. But I just wanted to share with you all that over the last 2 weeks, I've had some pretty inspiring experiences. 2 weekends in a row, I've been going to meetings in my riding of Davenport in Toronto, and they were both on electoral reform. And what's really striking about those meetings was, firstly, the number of people that were coming out to them, and secondly, just the diversity of people who were coming out to them. So diversity of ages and ethnicities and sort of backgrounds, and just all these people who I had never actually met before, which tells me that it's not just the usual suspects coming out. A lot of people who care about this issue for a wide variety of reasons. And it's been now almost exactly 2 months since this promise was broken. And we're still seeing people coming out. We're still having people email us every day wanting to know what they can do. People are chipping in financially to make, you know, the campaign keep going. They're sending emails, they're visiting their MPs. And I think what I've realized having seen this is that if we keep tapping into that anger, into our frustration, and pool all of this incredible energy that's coming out of that moment in February, I think we can still do this. And it might not be as easy as snapping our fingers, but I really think that we can do it because we've unleashed something that can't be put back in the bottle now. More people than ever know about this issue. And, you know, you can't take that away from us. So what we are going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is trying to work together to basically pool our collective energy and make something happen on this. And it might not be something that happens overnight, but we're going to do it together. So with that, we're going to talk about the plan. So are we on the slides? Yeah, okay. So we all know what happened in 2015. I think we all remember this promise pretty clearly. Trudeau made a promise 1,813 times to fix our voting system. Yeah, it was pretty cut and dry. He promised to make 2015 the last election under first past the post. And there was a long process of consulting with experts in the public. You've all been following this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You know what happened. But there was an all-party committee that recommended on December 1st for PR and a referendum. And it was it was a pretty big majority of experts and the public who recommended PR. So, you know, we did see pretty close to a consensus on that. Shortly after the party or the committee made the recommendation, there was a survey that launched in December. And yeah, what it just showed was that in spite of the government's attempts, I think, to make it a very vague survey, we actually did see that people want to see more collaboration and independence from their MPs, which again are qualities that are conducive or are sort of seen in proportional representation systems. And you know, it was widely mocked as an example of the government trying to obfuscate and you know, not really get to an answer. And it led to that moment in February when they just came out and announced that they were going to abandon the electoral reform promise altogether. So on February 1st, Trudeau and Minister Gould, the Minister of Democratic Institutions, came out, announced they were breaking their promise. They blamed a lack of consensus among Canadians for that breaking the promise, which a lot of people called out as not being true because, as we just saw, a lot of people through the consultation process recommended PR. And then later on, we saw Justin Trudeau also tried to attribute that to the rise of right-wing populism. He was asked by a voter about this, and he said, you know, do you want Kelly Leitch to have her own party? So that was kind of telling, I think. And as to why, I mean, I think we're not going to get into all the analysis of this tonight. It's probable that they didn't get the answer that they were hoping, and it felt like to them it would be easier to break the promise than to keep it, which I don't think is true, as we're about to get into. So I don't think counted on all the outrage, and there was a lot of outrage, and a lot of you were involved in making that happen. So over the last couple of weeks, I guess almost 2 months now, You've made thousands of phone calls, sent tens of thousands of emails. We've done a lot of media. We did a lot of media right after this happened, and continue to kind of be a go-to group on this issue. And a lot of our allies were also very involved in doing different actions after the promise was broken, including a National Day of Action in February, which a lot of you may have been involved with. There's also been a lot of effort to reach out one-on-one to MPs. So a lot of you have gone and dropped in to meet your MPs. We've heard of 128 of you. I think there were more. A lot of people probably just didn't tell us that they did it. But that's been super, super helpful to know that MPs have been getting a flood of constituents coming in and talking to them about this. And we've also seen a lot of people writing letters to the editor in their community newspapers across the country. And one of the cooler things we've done over the last 2 months also is that we were able to, thanks to the generosity of the Leadnow community, fundraise for ads in Ottawa, which have gone up on buses and outside of popular pubs near Parliament Hill, just kind of reminding them that they broke their promise, but there is still time for them to do the right thing. So those are actually going to be up for a solid month in Ottawa. And that was pretty cool. So, what I think was interesting about what happened in February was that I think it did catch a lot of MPs off guard. And I think that many of them have been uncomfortable with that broken promise. We saw Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, who is the Member of Parliament for Beaches East York, write an op-ed the next day apologizing for the promise just explicitly. We've seen other MPs be just sort of disappointed, express their disappointment in the broken promise, issue letters to their constituents that were sort of quasi-apology letters. And it just, people are not totally relieved by the fact that the Prime Minister made this announcement. And while I think it's true that there was probably some pressure within the Liberal caucus to break this promise, I think it's also clear that not all Liberals supported dropping electoral reform, and that in fact many of them could be allies in this movement. So now what? Where are we now? So we've heard recently, and I talked about this in the email that went out last week, but we have heard that there is going to be one more vote in the House of Commons on electoral reform. And what that will be a motion to basically endorse the Electoral Reform Committee's recommendations. And it could pass if just a handful of Liberals support it. The Liberals don't have that big of a majority. And it is possible that if approximately 20 of them were to vote for the motion, it could actually go through the House. We think that the opposition parties would all support this motion because it is something that they themselves all agreed on at the committee stage. So it really is just up to the Liberals at this point to decide kind of where they fall on it. You might be wondering why 20. So 20 is, I think, actually a little bit higher than what you would need. It's a little bit difficult to calculate right now because there are several by-elections happening. So we don't know exactly how big the Liberal majority is going to be at this point in May. But it is like about around the number that we would need to be safe in order to make sure that it passes. And we do think that there is a chance that we could get some Liberals to vote for this, partially because, like I just said, some of them are very uncomfortable with this promise. They've been electoral reform advocates before, and they want to let their constituents know that they do still want to see this conversation move forward. But also because we have seen in recent weeks examples of Liberals, particularly backbenchers, voting their conscience, voting against what the Prime Minister recommends. And Trudeau, to his credit, has not been as strict with whipping the vote as Harper was. So he's left more flexibility for MPs to be able to do that kind of thing. So yeah, right now we're kind of in this interesting place where the Liberals are trying to change the channel, and the NDP and the Greens have been working to try to keep it alive. The NDP just launched a tour to try to engage Liberal MPs on this issue. They're traveling to Liberal ridings and trying to meet with Liberal MPs. I'm not sure if they've successfully gotten any Liberal MPs out to their meetings or not, but there were meetings in Kitchener and Guelph yesterday and today, so we'll see what happens. And just also engaging those constituents on this issue and trying to bring the issue to their doorsteps. So this has been just one way that we're seeing people working hard to keep this issue alive. So what's the bottom line? the bottom line is, firstly, that the Liberals, you know, didn't really try to find a way forward on this issue. So I think that, like I said before, they said in February that part of the reason for breaking this promise was that there was no consensus, but we've seen that there was, and you know, there was definitely a consensus among the experts and the people who are interested in this issue. And even if they weren't satisfied with the report's recommendations, they definitely could have figured out a way to move this forward. They could have engaged Elections Canada. They could have introduced a different process. They could have moved the timeline down the road and figured out a way to make it binding. There's a lot of different options that were out there. And instead of doing those options, they decided to just close the door entirely. And we just think that's unacceptable, and that you know, we can still continue to talk about electoral reform. There's absolutely no reason why after the Electoral Reform Committee process ended that we needed to stop talking about it. And we're not going to accept that the conversation's over. I actually think that, like I said earlier, this is actually just the beginning of something pretty cool. We have a lot of people who are pretty interested in this issue, and there's still time to figure it out, but we need political will. So we're seeing some MPs starting to show some independence, starting to show that they might be interested in, you know, being engaged on this and possibly supporting this motion. And in order to build the political will that we're going to need to get this back on the table, we're basically going to have to work with MPs to pressure them to basically stand up, be democracy heroes, as we're calling it, and stand with us on this issue. So that's where the Democracy Heroes campaign comes in. And Rachel's going to go into more detail in a minute about what exactly that entails, but I'm just going to give really quick context. We launched this campaign a couple weeks ago, and we're basically asking MPs to stand up for electoral reform. Now that we know that this motion is coming, it's even more important to sign people onto this campaign, because voting and passing this motion is a really concrete way to be a democracy hero, to put electoral reform back on the table. And in order to be a democracy hero, all they have to do is just stand up for electoral reform and say, yes, I'm going to work within my party to put this back on the table. And part of that would involve supporting this motion in May. So with that, I'm going to stop and pitch to Rachel, who's going to explain exactly what we're doing to make that happen and how you can be involved. And I just wanted to say also, I know I said a lot and some of you may have questions. So again, just if you have questions, you can tweet them at us, or you can email them at questions@Leadnow.ca. Okay, I'm pitching to Rachel.
Great, thanks, Kate. So as Kate mentioned, this vote is to endorse the committee report. So the opposition has all agreed to this report. So we assume that they'll vote in favor of it. So what we need is a few Liberals to also vote in favor of the committee report. So our goal with this Democracy Heroes campaign is to get as many MPs as possible, at least 20 Liberal MPs, to take a pledge to be a democracy hero and then vote in favor of electoral reform in the House of Commons. So what does this actually mean to pledge to be a democracy hero? What we're actually asking, what the wording is that every vote should count, and that it's wrong for a party to win 100% of the power with less than half of the vote. So the pledge is that I am committed to working within my party to put electoral reform back on the table. So voting yes on this upcoming motion is a concrete step to getting electoral reform back on the table. So we expect that our MPs that sign on to be democracy heroes will vote in favor and stand up for us in the House of Commons. So I just want to show you a list of the MPs that have already signed on. So these are MPs that have already agreed to pledge to be democracy heroes. So from the Liberal Party, we have Nathaniel Erskine-Smith. From the NDP, we have Don Davies, Jenny Kwan, Hélène Lavaldière, Kennedy Stewart, Sherry Benson, Aaron Weir, Nikki Ashton, and then Elizabeth May from the Green Party. But of course, we want more MPs to sign on. We need more MPs to sign on. And we want as many MPs to sign on as possible. So it doesn't matter which party, we need MPs to know that their constituents care about this issue and that this is an issue that we want them to fight for us in the House of Commons. So if you're right now thinking like, I don't live in a Liberal riding or I don't live close to a Liberal riding, we still need you to take part in this campaign because we need MPs across the country, across parties to know that this is what their constituents care about. So we're prioritizing Liberal MPs. So we're saying every MP, but we are prioritizing Liberal MPs. So if you do live close to a Liberal MP's riding, or if you live in a city where there's several different ridings that you could potentially take action in, we are suggesting that you do prioritize Liberal MP ridings and pushing them to be democracy heroes first and foremost. And we'll also have a list of top 40 Liberal MPs that we are targeting that we'll be releasing soon. So this way, if you're not sure where you want to put your energies, you can see who the top 40 are that we are definitely wanting to prioritize. And these top 40 are places where they're MPs that have either supported electoral reform in the past, or they're in a vulnerable riding where they won by a very small margin. Or they're in a riding where we have a lot of Leadnow supporters already living. So this is how we're choosing the top 40, and we'll be able to share those with you so that you can make strategic choices about where you want to put your efforts. So we want to build power in these ridings, and the way that we're going to do that is by collecting signatures of fellow constituents who want our MPs to be democracy heroes. Then we're going to deliver these signatures to the MP right before the vote in May. So we will also be emailing MPs. So at votebetter.ca, over 5,000 of you have already sent emails to your MPs. And that's a big reason why many of the MPs who've signed on already have taken the pledge to be democracy heroes. And we're also going to continue letters to the editor, which we started a few months ago, which many of you taken part in, so that we can maintain the narrative and the energy and the momentum so that this issue stays on the radar of the general public, but also politicians. And then we're also going to be continuing to do targeted ads. And Kate mentioned the ads that we had in Ottawa, but also hoping to do targeted ads in some of our target ridings as well. So what I'll explain now is how we actually plan to build power in these ridings. So what are the main tactics? So I'm going to be speaking specifically about this collecting signatures and Canvas kickoff parties. And this is going to start to make more sense about what the box is on the side of your screen and what we're asking you to sign up for. So we're asking you to sign up to host a Canvas kickoff party. And this can be in your living room, it can be at a local farmer's market or a community center, but we're hoping that groups of like-minded people will get together in communities across the country and get out there talking to our neighbors, talking to the public, and asking them to sign our petition, calling on our MPs to be democracy heroes. We're hoping that these groups of people will meet weekly and that we'll collect as many signatures as we can in our ridings leading up to this vote in May. So our target is to get between 200 and 500 signatures in each city or town leading up to this vote. And then at the end, right before we actually have the vote, there'll be a coordinated petition delivery where we'll actually be able to deliver not only the signatures that we're collecting in the field, so talking to people face to face, but also the petition signatures we're collecting online. And we'll be able to give these to our MPs before they actually go in for that vote. So why will this work? Why is this the plan? We really believe that if we pressure key Liberal MPs, we can get 20 Liberals to vote for this motion because MPs will be worried about re-election. Many support electoral reform, and they will use this motion as an opportunity to signal to their constituents that they do care. So, why will MPs actually want to sign on to this? Why will they do this? Well, first off, they might agree. They think that electoral reform is very important. And this campaign gives them a way to take a stand on this and not stand up alone on this, but stand up with other fellow MPs and really stand up and show their constituents that they care for this. The other reason is that they may be in a swing riding and they're worried about not getting reelected. They may have won by a small margin and know that this was a very important and pivotal election issue. And so in both cases, if they agree, they'll need support from their constituents. But if they don't agree, we need to make them worried that they will lose their seat. And so that's why we're building power with people who are very powerful in their ridings, which are those who got them elected. And so that brings us to the question, like, why actually collect signatures? Like, why is this strategic? And the first reason is that this works. And so at Leadnow, we send out emails, we do phone banking, and we do a ton of face-to-face conversations. And both from our own experience, but also from a lot of research that's been done in the States, face-to-face conversations are way more likely to get people to take action than receiving an email asking them to sign something or receiving a phone call. It's really having that face-to-face interaction, someone to explain it to them, that really leads to more people taking the action that we're asking. But also it is fundamental to this strategy. So our goal is to get MPs to pledge to be democracy heroes, and the best way we can pressure them is from their constituents, all of us who actually got them elected. So whether they already support electoral reform or are worried about losing their seat, we can show them that their constituents care about this issue, but also that we'll be watching how they vote in the House of Commons in May. And lastly, it's so important to collect signatures across the country because this is an incredible national story. So people canvassing in their communities in a non-election time on electoral reform is huge and is very likely to pick up a lot of media and give this issue momentum and bring it back into the limelight. So we think it's really exciting, and we're really excited to plug you all into this. But of course, this will only work if people sign up to host a Canvas kickoff party. And so a Canvas kickoff party is just saying that you will be the person, the point person in your community, in your neighborhood, who will host a small group of other people who also agreed to go out canvassing. And you'll be the point person that we can contact to send materials to support. So you actually right now could sign up in the box next to the video that you're watching to say that, yes, you will be a person to host a Canvas kickoff party. And so what we're asking is for some of your details, so your name, your email, and your phone number so that we can contact you, but also right now to think about when you can do this. So picking a date and a time. And you can just think of a time next week or in the next 2 weeks. It can be on a weekend, it can be after work one day, it can be whatever time is appropriate for you. So pick a date, you can enter that in the event details on the side. A start time, so just picking what time the event itself will start. Don't enter the end time, we don't need that information. We just need to know what time you guys want to meet. You want to enter the location, and so this is the place that you want people to meet, and this will be public. So this would be, for example, saying, the Vancouver Center Community Center, or the local library, or the name of 2 intersections that you plan on meeting. So that's the actual location, that's the public location that you want people to be able to see, whereas the address, which is hidden in the filling out on the side there, that's if you're going to be hosting at your home. So we won't put your address out publicly, and so that's if you wanted to meet in your living room, and that way the people who will see your address will only be those who RSVP. So that won't actually be on our website. And that's if you were meeting in your living room and then wanted to go maybe knock on your neighbor's doors or go to a place that's close to your home to canvas, and then the city, postal code, and then any extra notes. So this is if you wanted to say anything to folks who might attend your Canvas kickoff party. Anything from if you have cats in your house and someone might be allergic, or a note that you want people to be aware of before they join you. And so once you fill out all this information on the side, it will become an event on our website. So you'll receive a little window that will pop up after you enter your information, and it'll be a link to your event. And so that way we can post it and your neighbors can see it. Anyone who's a Leadnow supporter who's looking for a Canvas event in their neighborhood can come to our website and then RSVP for your event. So if you're still kind of thinking about it, you can actually start entering that information right now. And if you're someone who's thinking, I'd really like to go to a Canvas, but I'm not actually sure I can host one, we're going to tell you about how you can sign up to attend a Canvas in a second. We're just starting right now with folks that we're asking to host. Once you fill in that information as well, we'll be sending you a toolkit. So it's a toolkit that walks you through everything you need to know to host a Canvas, including materials, tips, guides, frequently asked questions, everything we could think of that you might need to know. You'll also receive an invitation to a training that we'll be hosting next week for hosts. And you'll also have a contact person, so a person at Leadnow who will be your contact person for the duration of the next 2 months until May, who will support you with this canvas and with our plans to move this campaign forward. And will also help you with outreach. So to get people to come to your canvas, it'll be posted on our site so others can join. So that was a lot of information. I'm going to actually walk us through this because you might be thinking, what exactly is this going to look like? What is a Canvas kickoff party? So all of this is explained in the toolkit, every detail that I'm saying right now, but I will just go over it just so folks have a better sense of what they're signing up for. So what it looks like is that you pick your date and your time and location. Again, it could be your living room, but it could also be a farmer's market or a local, like a weekly event that happens in your neighborhood. You will enter it into the box on the right, and then we'll create that event on a web page so that other people can RSVP. And then you'll get ready for your Canvas kickoff. So you'll need to print a few things like scripts and petitions and flyers. All of that's in the toolkit. You'll get a few materials ready, so pens and clipboards that you can buy at a dollar store. And then people will arrive. You'll go over the materials. You might pair up and practice the script, and then you will head out. So you'll be asking people to sign the petition calling on your MP to be a democracy hero. And if you've never canvassed before, there's lots of tricks and tips in our toolkit. And honestly, the best way to get good at canvassing is to canvas, and you will pick up a ton of tips and tricks yourself, and you'll probably end up doing your own things that you learned with the script and with the petition. It might seem daunting, but you'll be surprised how many people sign up. After a couple of hours, the team will be out getting all these signatures, and then you'll come back together. They'll hand you their signatures, and then you guys will decide on the next time to meet. And I say it's easy to get people to sign up, and of course it is a lot of work as well, but our team in Vancouver, for example, last year on electoral reform, were able to collect over 6,000 signatures, and this was really important to really build power for this campaign. So if enough of you guys sign up to host, we can have these Canvas kickoff parties and continuous canvases happening all across the country. So this is going to be a really massive example of people not wanting this to go away, of wanting electoral reform in Canada, and really being able to show Trudeau that he may have pulled the plug on electoral reform for now, but we're going to show him that we are not giving up, and we're showing MPs across the country that we're definitely not going to let this slide. Then, right before the vote, we'll coordinate petition deliveries. So we'll have all of our teams who've been across the country collecting all these signatures deliver this massive list of signatures to their MP before the vote. We'll also be asking you to document what you're doing and sending us your photos as well. So this is going to be able to build more momentum. So if you are, having folks in your living room or meeting outside, send us your photos. So we asked you to do this when we asked you to meet MPs as well. Tweet at us using the hashtag #DemocracyHeroes, or send us your photos directly at photos@Leadnow.ca, and we can help really get them out into the public eye, because we have lots of followers on social media. And so this is a really great way to show that this is happening coordinated across the country. So it might seem like we're asking you to do a lot. This might seem like, a big step for you. Maybe this is something that you've never done before. Maybe this is something that's out of your comfort zone to host a canvas party or to even go out canvassing. Maybe this is new for you. But right now, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to push for voting reform in this country. And unless we step up together across the country and pressure our MPs to stand with us, we're going to lose this fight. So the only way this plan will work is if folks sign up to host these canvases. You will get a toolkit, you'll get a guide and support every step of the way, but we are only in our cities at Leadnow where we have staff, and really the power of Leadnow is the people like you on the ground taking action in your communities, where MPs are and where people live. So I'll ask you one more time to sign up. You can fill in your information on the box on the right of your screen, and just fill in your information about yourself and when you could host your Canvas kickoff party. And again, if you can't host, but you do want to attend, so you want to go to a Canvas, but you can't actually host, you can now be available to either the link that's on this slide, or actually below your screen, there's a link that will send you to a map. And then if you put in your postal code, you'll be able to see that there's Canvas kickoff parties possibly happening in your neighborhood, and you can RSVP right now. If there isn't one already listed there, that means that no one has offered to host one, and so that might be an opportunity for you to step up and host it. This is the website where all of the different Canvases across the country will be listed. And just a quick note here, we are testing new tech tonight. We haven't actually done this before at Leadnow. So if you did try and put in an event and it's not showing up, our apologies for that. It would have been a tech glitch, and we will definitely help you out with that. So if you did try and put up a Canvas and something went wrong, send us an email at organize@leadnow.ca or questions@leadnow.ca, and we'll be able to make sure your Canvas kickoff gets on our website. So as people are putting in their information and doing their RSVPs, I'm going to pass it back to Kate to let us know about what else is happening with this campaign.
Great. So while we're waiting for folks to sign up for some events, which I hope all of you are as we speak, yeah, and we are going to get to questions in a minute. So if you're waiting for some of your questions to be answered, we will totally answer those in just a few minutes. I just wanted to tell you a little bit else about what else is going on besides this canvassing program, because obviously there's a lot of different elements to this campaign, and you wouldn't be just out there on your own. There's a lot of other things we'll be doing to support you. So one of those things is meeting with MPs. So we are working on having meetings with MPs. A lot of you went out and met with your MPs and have already talked to them, and we'll be following up on a lot of those meetings with Leadnow staff over the next couple of weeks. And then we are hoping that we can do some more ad buys as well. So the ads in Ottawa were pretty great. We would also love to bring those to some MP doorsteps. So keep an eye out for that over the next couple of weeks. We would love to just sort of like target a couple of key places where we think that these ads would have a really big impact and just show MPs that we haven't gone away, basically. So we're also looking at running some in-riding polls to help show MPs how many people in their ridings actually do care about this issue. For those of you that have been going out and talking to your MPs, you might know that some of them are sort of trying to deflect this issue by saying that they don't think that people care about it. And I don't think that we really believe that is true, and we would like to show them the numbers. And lastly, we would like to see more letters to the editor. So, having lots of things in local media is really impactful, especially for MPs that represent smaller communities where there are more local media outlets. We have seen a lot of really great things happening across the country in terms of people writing op-eds and letters to the editor, and we just want to keep up that steady drumbeat of coverage in local media. And of course, our allies are always busy with this issue as well. As a lot of you know, we are involved in the Every Voter Counts Alliance. So we have our friends at Fair Vote who are also a member of that alliance doing some really cool things. I just want to plug them for a minute. They're working on some by-elections in Markham and Ottawa right now, and are also working on the BC election, getting parties in that election to commit to electoral reform, which is pretty great. There are some folks out in BC who are working on a charter challenge in case you're interested in that. And of course, we have a couple of the federal parties involved in this tour that is currently going across the country from now until the end of May, featuring Nathan Cullen, who's the NDP critic for electoral reform. And you can learn more about that at keepyourpromise.ca. They're going to be stopping in a lot of different parts of Canada. I don't know if all the dates are up yet, but I'm sure they will be public very soon.
All right, so back to the sign up. Again, the host sign up is on your screen on the right. So that's if you can host. And again, that's just to be the point person in your neighborhood who will be the person that people will know to meet at, right? So you're the person who's saying, yes, come to my living room, or I want to meet at the community center down the street, and that you're actually setting up the event in your neighborhood. And that way that people who also want to fight for electoral reform, who also want to pressure our MPs to be democracy heroes and vote for electoral reform in the House of Commons, know that they can meet you there, and your group can go out and canvass together. So you're saying, yes, I will sign up to be that point person. If you're not sure right now, if you want to do that or you don't know which time, we really encourage you to just go ahead and put the information you have right now in there. And in terms of your date and your start time, you will be able to switch it afterwards if you're really unsure if that's the right time for you. But we encourage you, even if you don't have the 100% details, to definitely let us know that you're interested in doing this by filling out your event right now to host a Canvas kickoff in the right of the screen. And then if you can't host, again, you can click on the RSVP button, which is below your screen, and find a Canvas kickoff party near you. And if there isn't one located near you, that means no one has signed up yet to host one. And so that might be an option for you to do. And you can click to host an event.
Okay, I think it's time for questions. I'm gonna make that call. So maybe we'll put us back on the screen now. Hello, we're back. So we're just gonna go through some of the questions that we've been getting over the course of this presentation. And if you have a burning question based on all the information we just dumped on you, and I'm sorry, I realized that went a little bit longer than I think we were intending. So thank you for bearing with us. If you have questions, you can email them to questions@leadnow.ca or tweet at us at Leadnow.ca, and we have someone who's curating those questions and feeding them to us, so we will try to get to as many as we can right now. So the first question that I wanted to answer, and this is actually a great question, and I think I was intending to say it during the presentation and maybe didn't, but the question is, what happens if we pass the motion? So like, why bother passing the motion at all? What are the next steps? That is a great question. What is the point of all of this? So I think that this is not, I'm not going to tell you that this is a legally binding motion, because it's not. It's not something that twists the government's arm, but it does send a very strong message to this government that the House of Commons as a whole, as a majority, has endorsed the idea of electoral reform and moving forward on electoral reform, as well as the committee's recommendations on that. So it definitely does move us in the direction of reopening a conversation on electoral reform. And I think the other key piece is that if it does pass, it will be because some Liberals supported it. And that also sends a message to the government that their own MPs want to see this move forward. And so that does put pressure on the Liberals to figure out a way to move this forward, basically. So it's definitely not a solution. It's not going to be, you know, the way that we get to PR. It's going to be the very first step in that. But I think we're in a situation right now where the door has been closed by this government, and we need to reopen it. We need to kick the door down, essentially. So this is a good way to build momentum towards doing that, and to also identify who some of our allies might be, who some of our friends who like electoral reform in the Liberal Party are, and then begin to work with them, basically, to work within the Liberal Party to bring this back. There's going to be a lot of different opportunities to do this over the next few years, and this is the first one that's come up it's in a very short time frame, and so we're looking forward to kind of working as a community towards just putting this back in the news and working with MPs to make it another vote in the House of Commons. So Rachel, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'll take the next one. There's a couple questions coming up again about how this is going to work, around materials, around actually getting it to our MPs. Yeah, so again, the toolkit you'll receive, and you'll receive it after you say, yes, I want to be a host. So after you fill out your information, you'll automatically get sent a toolkit. And this toolkit has everything you need, like all the materials, all the instructions, explains the whole strategy. It has everything you need, including a phone number and an email that you can contact in case you need support. But also there'll be a specific Lead Now person giving you a call in the next week once you sign up to make sure you're all good. So you're gonna have a support person that you can contact directly after you sign up, who will support you to make this happen. And then also just linked with this question, someone was asking about actually delivering the signatures, because MPs will be in Ottawa, and they actually will be in their ridings at the end of May. And so we're hoping to time that right before the vote, when they are actually in their constituency offices. So it will actually work really well with this strategy to be able to deliver it when they are home.
Great. So there's a couple of the same question. So people are wondering about whether we can count on the opposition parties to support this. I think that we can't count on anything in this world, but I think that because the vote is related to the committee recommendation, which is something that the Conservatives had a hand in which they kind of endorsed through that process, I would assume that they would support this motion as well. So, I mean, I think that we are moving ahead with the assumption that we're working on bringing with us, and we will have to adjust if we hear otherwise. And then the other question that was kind of related to that was whether we know if this will be a free vote. So this was a question that actually Nathan Cullen was asked last weekend at one of at the first meeting stop that he had in Toronto, and his response was that he thinks it will be, that there's not any reason to think it wouldn't be, and usually these votes are not whipped votes or votes where the government kind of forces their MPs to vote a certain way. And so we also know that this government has been a little bit more relaxed in how many votes they do whip. So I think that it is worth considering, focusing our work with backbencher MPs who have a little bit more independence, I think, than MPs in cabinet. But at this point, we are moving ahead, assuming that it will be a free vote.
Some more questions about the actual process of hosting the Canvas kickoffs. Some questions around timing. So how late into May will we be canvassing? And we talked about the next 2 weeks, but is it possible to host this not in the next 2 weeks? And the answer is we're trying to get this off the ground as quick as possible. So we're hoping that folks can host their Canvas kickoffs as soon as possible in the next few weeks, but we're going to be canvassing up until the vote because we want to collect as many signatures as possible from now until the vote in the end of May. And so if you're out of town the next 2 weeks and the earliest date you can host a Canvas kickoff is the first week in May, that's still awesome. And we will be able to let other supporters in your neighborhood know about that once you set it up. So if you do have a date in mind that's not in the next 2 weeks, please do sign up now and put that into the sign up box on the side of your screen. And there was also questions about, if your MP is not someone that you think you can shift. Again, we're going to be encouraging folks, like if you're in a riding next to a riding that you think makes more sense, to go canvass in that riding. And so the meetup spot doesn't have to be your living room. It can be choosing, a cafe or a point where you're asking people to gather in the riding you want to work on. But that also, we are calling on all MPs to be democracy heroes. And we do know that we can get MPs to sign on from every party because this vote is specifically around endorsing the recommendations of the committee, which all of the opposition parties did support. So this isn't asking them to do something totally ridiculous and something that they haven't already previously agreed to.
Okay, I don't know if I see any other burning questions. I think there was a question about whether it's worth hosting a party if you think your MP either won't be or can't be shifted. I think yes. So I know that a lot of you have probably gone out and held meetings with your MPs already on this issue, and they've given you very firm responses to that, to the effect that they are not going to do anything about electoral reform. I think it's up to you, but I do think that there is always value in working to engage people in your MP's constituency who care about electoral reform and delivering them, a big chunk of petitions in May that shows that their constituents do care about this. At the end of the day, I think that MPs are really motivated by the things that they think their constituents are upset about. And so if they're telling you that they don't believe that they think that people are interested in this issue or are upset about this issue, I just think we need to prove them wrong. And I would take that as a challenge to try to do what you can in your own constituency to rally people and sort of show your MP that people do care. So again, it's it's everyone has to do what they think is impactful, but I would definitely not take no for an answer.
All right, so thanks so much for your questions. If your questions did not get answered, we will get back to you by email. So definitely, if you think of something after this, send us an email at questions@Leadnow.ca. And we're just gonna bring back our slide deck one more time, just so folks are really clear about where and how they can sign up. So signing up is the next steps. So signing up to either host or RSVP to attend. So you're signing up that saying that you will host a Canvas kickoff party on the box on your right, or if you would just like to RSVP to attend, clicking the link below your screen and finding a local kickoff party near you. And again, if there isn't one there, that means no one signed up to host one. So that is an opportunity for you to step up and say that you'll be the point person in your community to bring people together to collect signatures. Again, you'll receive a toolkit with more information, and you'll receive a phone call from a support person at Leadnow that will walk you through every step of the way. Again, we can't do this plan unless people across the country step up and say that this is something we want to fight for, and this is something that we want our MPs to stand up for us in the House of Commons to really move forward. We think it's possible. It's going to take hard work, but we really are not going to stop fighting for electoral reform, and we hope that you're with us too.
Okay, I think that's basically it. So maybe we can just flip back to me for the last little bit here, but we are, I think we're done. So that was a lot of information. Thank you so much for bearing with us and for asking all your great questions. I hope that that you will consider signing up for this. It's actually really urgent, and we don't have that much time. It's going to be here faster than we know. And this is actually a really unique opportunity to send a very strong message to this government that people are still mad about electoral reform, and that we see this as a unique opportunity to put this back on the table. So, if we kind of let this go, it proves them right that they're not going to pay a political price for breaking this promise. And I think that we need to show them that that's not the case. So please sign up to host a Canvas. If you need to think about it, you can come back to this link tomorrow or anytime over the next couple of weeks and sign up to host a Canvas. We'll be sending out an email on Saturday with a recap of this webinar and some more information for you, how you can sign up to attend a Canvas if you've been watching and you just aren't really sure that you can host, but you really want to participate. All that information, just watch your inboxes on Saturday and we will have that for you. So thank you again for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And if you have any remaining questions or something that occurs to you afterwards, definitely send us an email at questions@leadnow.ca and someone will get back to you. All right, that's it. Thank you so much, and hope to see you out on the streets over the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a good night.